The Persecution of Christianity, the Third Reich, the NKVD, and the Modern Warning of Relativism. By James P. Pierce. The persecution of religious communities under the totalitarian regimes of the early to mid-20th century demonstrates a profound struggle between political power and religious influence. Both the Nazi Party in Germany and the NKVD under the Soviet Union viewed Christianity as a rival for ideological control. While Adolf Hitler and Heinrich Himmler had divergent motivations within the Nazi Party, their combined efforts led to policies that targeted Christian institutions, particularly Catholic and Protestant churches. The NKVD, as the secret police of Stalin's Soviet Union, similarly persecuted Christian leaders and believers as part of a broader campaign against religion. This historical persecution reflects Pope Benedict XVI's cautionary stance against the dictatorship of relativism, which he described as a cultural condition where subjective preference and social consensus overshadow objective moral truth. Benedict warned that in such a society, Christianity's claims to absolute truth become marginalized as they are perceived as restrictive or incompatible with a pluralistic and secular worldview. The diminishing influence of Christianity in the face of totalitarian states in the 20th century illustrates how power structures can seek to eradicate or marginalize belief systems that threaten their ideological supremacy. The Third Reich's policy shift and Christian persecution. Initially, Adolf Hitler adopted a politically strategic approach towards Christianity. Despite being raised in a Catholic environment, Hitler's faith did not align with traditional Christian values. His early engagement with Christianity was one of convenience. His goal was to secure political support from Germany's Christian majority. In Mein Kampf, Hitler positioned himself as a defender of Christianity against Jewish influence, aligning with the party's broader anti-Semitic narrative. The party's 1920 declaration that it stood for positive Christianity without denominational allegiance was intended to reassure Christian voters and political figures. However, this surface-level support masked Hitler's deeper intention of neutralizing the Church's power, as he viewed religious institutions as potential threats to his totalitarian vision. After becoming Chancellor in 1933, Hitler's public assurances that church rights would be preserved were contradicted by subsequent actions aimed at undermining ecclesiastical influence. The 1933 Reich Concordat with the Roman Catholic Church, though initially seen as a diplomatic success, ultimately served as a tool to suppress the Church's political voice. The vague language of the Concordat allowed the Nazis to exploit ambiguities and curtail Catholic organizations' activities. The Nazi Party's policy evolved from strategic appeasement to active repression, led in part by Heinrich Himmler, who was determined to eradicate Christian influence from his SS and wider German society. Himmler's fascination with Germanic myths and anti-Christian beliefs fueled aggressive measures, including surveillance of church activities, bans on religious publications, and the removal of Christian symbols from schools. The NKVD's campaign against Christianity. In the Soviet Union, the NKVD carried out Stalin's anti-religious campaigns with ruthless efficiency. The Orthodox Church, along with other Christian denominations, was seen as an obstacle to the Communist Party's control over the ideological and social spheres of Soviet life. Clergy were arrested, imprisoned, and executed, and religious properties were confiscated or repurposed for state use. Just as in Nazi Germany, the NKVD's actions reflected the state's commitment to eradicating any source of moral or ideological authority that could challenge its dominance. The modern implications of relativism. The experiences of Christians under these totalitarian regimes highlight the dangers of a society where power suppresses objective moral truths in favor of subjective or state-imposed beliefs. Pope Benedict XVI's warning about the dictatorship of relativism emphasizes that when societies abandon absolute truths in favor of fluid moral standards, institutions that uphold these truths, such as Christianity, are often marginalized or attacked. This relativistic approach contributes to the weakening of traditional moral frameworks and leaves a society vulnerable to the influence of authoritarian ideologies. In both Nazi Germany and Stalin's Soviet Union, the persecution of Christian communities was not only a struggle for power but also a broader conflict between absolute truth claims and the ambitions of totalitarian regimes. Understanding these historical precedents provides a sobering reminder of the consequences when societies reject foundational moral principles and the critical role that religious institutions play in upholding them. This synthesis connects the historical context of Christian persecution under the Nazi and Soviet regimes to Pope Benedict XVI's modern warning, illustrating the broader theme of how relativistic and authoritarian ideologies can clash with absolute truth claims made by religious institutions.